Hey guys, Nicole here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this adorable patchwork crochet vest. This vest is so cute to layer over a simple long sleeve tee or a turtleneck, or to wear completely on its own. I will link all of the materials that you'll need for this vest in the description, and then here is the size chart. Please go ahead and select what size you're going to be making, and the sizes will be determined based on the numbers included in these parentheses in the order of the size that you are following. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Crocheting, where I post pattern releases every single Monday. And if you subscribe to my newsletter on thecrocheting.com, you will be the first to know about those pattern releases. We're going to start by making out the waistband here, and then the rest of the vest is worked from the top up. If when you finish up the waistband, you want to try that on and make sure that it fits right, I would recommend doing that. And if you find it a little too tight or too loose, you can go up or down the size accordingly to get that really good fit. So the stitch abbreviations will also be included in the description, and if at any point you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below or DM me on Instagram. I will try to respond to all of them and as soon as possible. But with that, why don't we get started? So I'm starting with Lion Brand Feels Like Alpaca yarn in the color Ecru and a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and I'm just going to fasten on the yarn to my hook, and I'm going to make a chain of 12. Now that I have my chain of 12, I'm going to add an additional chain, which is not going to count as a stitch. I'm going to turn and make a single crochet stitch into the next chain from my hook, and a single crochet in each chain across. So I finished with making a single crochet in each chain across for my round 1. For round 2, I'm going to chain 1, which will not count as a stitch, turn, and then make a single crochet into this back loop of the next single crochet stitch from my hook, and then I'm going to continue across, making a single crochet into the back loop of each single crochet stitch across, just working into the back loops in each stitch across. And this exact round of single crocheting in the back loops across is going to be the same round that you repeat for the entire waistband. Just working in rounds, single crocheting in the back loop of each stitch across. So now I have all of my rounds completed. Because I am making a size small, I made a total of 80 rounds of just single crocheting in the back loops of each stitch across. And now that I have my 80 rounds complete, the next step I'm going to do is line up the last and the first rounds of my rectangle, and I'm just going to work a slip stitch across through both of the first and last rounds in order to connect the piece into a giant loop. So just working a slip stitch through both rounds across. Okay, so now that I've slip stitched across, I'm now going to chain 1, which will not count as a stitch, and then I'm just going to work one single crochet into the side of each round across. So for me, I was making a size small, which has a total of 80 rounds. So I'm going to return to my original single crochet stitch with 80 stitches worked in that round. So I'm just going to make the single crochets into the side of each round across for a total of 80 stitches. Okay, so I've just finished making a single crochet into the side of each round all the way around and arrived back at my very first single crochet. So now I'm going to also be using my 3 other colors. So we have burgundy, rust, and mustard here. All Feels Like Alpaca Yarn by Lime Brand. And I'm going to start off with the white square just because I'm already fastened on, so it's easier. And I'm just going to chain 1, which won't count as a stitch. And because I am making a size small here, my squares are going to be 10 stitches in length. So I'm going to single crochet now for a total of 10 stitches. So now that I have my 10 stitches, I'm going to chain 1, not counting as a stitch, turn, and then make 10 more single crochets across here. Okay, so now I have 10 single crochets across. I'm gonna do the same process, chaining 1, turning, and single crocheting in each stitch across until I have essentially a square that is 10 stitches wide and 10 stitches tall. So this is going to be a total of 10 rounds of 10 single crochets in the color white. And when I finish making the 10 rounds of these white 10 single crochet stitches, I will show you how we're going to start making the rest of the squares. Okay, so I've made my 10 rounds and I'm going to fasten off now. And now I'm going to take my next color, which I'm going to use rust for. And I'm going to fasten on 10 stitches away from where the white square begins. So I'm going to count here 10 away. And make a slip stitch into the 10th stitch from the white square. Now I'm going to turn, chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and make 10 single crochets across, just as we've been doing for the white square, until I reach the white square. So I've arrived back at where the white square starts. Now I'm going to look at this stitch where the top and bottom begin, and I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that white stitch to connect the square. And now I'm going to make one more slip stitch into the above row from the first round of the white square into the second round. So this connects the squares together. So now when I go to make a single crochet into that first row of the rust color, the square will be connected to the white square. And this also produces a clear right and wrong side of your work. So as you can see, this will be the wrong side, where you could see a little white and rust color mixing. And then this on the back here will be the right side, since there's a very smooth line here connecting the two. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this process of single crocheting across and slip stitching into the side of the white square until I reach the very last round. Okay, so I've just finished making the rust colored square, and this is what the right side looks like, and this is the wrong side here. So we're fully connected to the white square, which means I can now fasten off. And I'm going to repeat this process now with one of my other colors. I'm going to use the mustard color now. And what I'm gonna do now is just go around the entire border of my waistband here making squares that are 10 stitches long and 10 stitches tall. And I'm going to do this around the full waistband so that I have a total of 8 squares, because for me, making the size small, I had 80 stitches to start, and if each square is 10 stitches long, I'm going to end up with 8 total squares. So I'll come back when I have all of my squares fastened on to this first round here on the waistband. Okay, so I finished making nearly all of the squares. I just want to show you the difference between the previous squares and how the very last squares worked. So instead of doing the slip stitch and single crochet into one of these stitches here on the waistband, I'm actually going to go to the first row of the very first square here and slip stitch directly into the side of that row. Now I'm just going to continue to single crochet across the remaining 10 stitches like we've been doing for every square until I reach the other side, where I'm going to continue the same process of slip stitching into the side of that square and then once more up to begin the second row here. So the only real difference between the final square and the other squares is that the beginning of this square is started on the side of the other square as opposed to on one of the waistband stitches. So I'm just going to continue to finish this square as normal with 10 stitches across until I reach the very top of both squares. So we have all of our squares attached, one completed row of squares, and now I'm going to go ahead and make 4 additional rows of squares here so that we have 5 total stacked up against one another. And when we come back, I'll show you how to finish off the top and make the sleeve holes and the rest of the base. But if you do want a longer vest, I would suggest creating additional columns of squares until you reach your desired length. For me, that's going to be having a total of 5 squares in height. So I'm going to go ahead and make the 4 remaining rows of squares off, and then I'll come back when those are complete. Okay, so now I have my 5 columns of squares finished. And as you can see, I've already started to make the front of the vest a bit here by making this diagonal triangle on this one side. I'm now going to repeat that process directly next to this triangle to work on the front of the vest to create that V shape. I'm just going to slip stitch into this corner, chain 1, and single crochet across for a total of 10 stitches. And now that I have my 10 stitches, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And now I'm going to single crochet in each stitch across, except for when I get to the last 2 stitches, I'm going to make a single crochet decrease. So we're just making a single crochet decrease in these last 2 stitches here, like that. And now I'm going to make a single crochet decrease in the starting 2 stitches on my way back. And then I'm just going to continue to single crochet in each stitch across. So now I'm losing 1 stitch after every round because I'm either starting or ending the round with a single crochet decrease. So I'm going to continue to alternate between single crocheting across and ending in a single crochet decrease, and starting with a single crochet decrease all the way to 1 stitch. So when you have 1 stitch, look left, you can fasten off and move on to the next step. Okay, so now we have both of these triangles done, so we're going to add a little mini rectangle going up the side here to finish off the front of this vest. So to do that, I'm going to use 3 stitches here from my previous square. You can refer to the sizing that you're making to determine how many stitches on your previous square you should use. So I'm just going to single crochet in each stitch across there. So I have 3 single crochets. I'm just going to repeat the same process of slip stitching into the closest stitch on this triangle, and then slip stitching, try that again, slip stitching 1 up, and turning and making 3 single crochets across. So essentially this is the same process as the squares, except this time around you are just making single crochets into 3 stitches across, like this. So after making your 2 rectangles, you're going to want to just make 1 additional rectangle on top of this one that's also 3 stitches in width, and you're going to just continue your same color pattern. So it looks like after white I use rust, so I'm going to use that again up here, and same thing with this side on this other triangle, just 2 additional triangles on top here. Okay, so now we have our 2 rectangles stacked on top of each other, and then these 2 slanted triangles coming out of the sides, making the front top complete. And at any point, if you do want to weave in all your ends, feel free to do it ahead of time. I'm just going to wait until I'm finished creating this vest to start weaving in ends. Then for the back, you're just going to make 2 more squares on top of the 2 squares that kind of directly line up with this front. So as you can see, that would be these 2 squares here in the back. And then when you have both of those 2 squares stacked on top of each other, you can just go ahead and sew these last triangles here to the tip corner of those 2 squares. And I'm going to come back actually and show you what I mean by that. All right, so I've added these 2 squares stacked against one another to the back, and I've gone ahead and sewed it to the front of the vest. So as you can see here, we took the 2 small rectangles from the front and just connected that to the side of the closest square on the back. So now that we've got our head shape here, our sleeve holes here, the last step of this is going to be fastening on with white yarn, or whichever color you're using in place of the white, and just single crocheting in each stitch around. And if you are working into the edges of rounds, just do your best to estimate where those stitches should go. And so after you make this border of single crochets, you're going to slip stitch anywhere on the sleeve holes, again with the white yarn, and do the same thing, just single crochet around the entire sleeve hole with the white. Same thing here, this around with the white yarn to clean up the borders. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that for the neck hole, both sleeve holes, and then I'm going to weave in all of my ends, and we should be done.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this crochet tutorial or you want to see more from me, please give me a thumbs up and let me know how your pattern turned out. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. I am trying to post a new crochet tutorial every month, so you don't want to miss those as they come out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.